Good afternoon, everybody. I'm James McIlvaine, and I'm the Vancouver Police Chief. Let me start by expressing my sympathies with the Sahota family and the members of the Vancouver Police Department. I'm truly heartbroken. Next, I'd like to thank everyone who has expressed their condolences for the loss of Officer Don Sahota. This has been a devastating blow, first and foremost to Officer Sahota's family, as well as the Vancouver Police Department family. Don's family is in my thoughts and prayers. As you may know, this is the first line of duty death for the Vancouver Police Department since our inception in 1883, which makes this all the more impactful for us. The department has received many letters, emails, cards, all expressing their support, and I wanted to let you know that a bank account has been established where people can make donations that will go to the Sahota family. We'll be sending out the specific information on that in a media release, which will come out shortly. Any cards that are mailed to the Vancouver Police Department will make sure that they get to the Sahota family. As you can imagine, there's a tremendous amount of work that goes into planning a law enforcement memorial service. I want to express my gratitude to the folks from Behind the Badge Foundation for their work to help us stand up a team to plan a memorial service which will honor and respect the life of Don Sahota. We are working closely with Officer Sahota's family throughout this process to ensure their wishes are met. This team, which consists of members of the Vancouver Police Department, as well as folks from Behind the Badge, and many others who represent law enforcement agencies throughout the state of Washington. They met earlier this week to begin this work together. I'll share information about the date, the time, and the location for the memorial in just a moment. The circumstances surrounding the death of Officer Sahota have been extremely painful and emotional for our department, as well as the greater law enforcement community in our area. During his law enforcement career, Officer Sahota previously worked for the Gresham Police Department and the Port of Portland Police Department, and the people in those organizations are grieving as well. I also want to share that over the past few days, I've been in many conversations with Sheriff Atkins, and I know that he and his people are also hurting. As part of the planning process for Officer Sahota's memorial service, a team has been assigned as liaisons to Officer Sahota's family, and I want to share statements that we have received from both Don's wife and his mother. The following is a statement from Officer Sahota's family and kids. They say, "While police officers are heroes, they are also human. Being a law enforcement family, we understand that this is one of the hardest jobs in the world, often involving split-second decisions that mean life or death. We would like everyone to know that we hold no ill feelings toward the Clark County Sheriff's Office or the deputy involved in this tragedy, and hope others can show them grace as well. The fact remains that one person is ultimately responsible for the death of Officer Sahota, the suspect who is in custody. If this individual hadn't made poor decision after poor decision and ended up inside our home, we wouldn't be where we are now. The next statement is from Don's mother. She'd like to say, Don was really just a great man. Honest, kind, loved to help people. He was a great son, wonderful father, and husband. He loved his job and loved serving his community. Here I'd like to share information on the memorial service for Officer Sahota. The service will be held next Tuesday, February 8th at 1 p.m. and the location is A Casino. We'll provide address information for those who are interested in attending. Specifics on this will also include any information regarding COVID guidelines. Despite all that our region law enforcement community is going through, as we continue to process Officer Sahota's death, the dedication and commitment of the men and women in law enforcement to prioritize our missions to protect the safety of our residents has not wavered. As I conclude, I want to share a quote that was posted on the board of the memorial planning team on their first day working together. And this is a group with Behind the Badge and all the other law enforcement agencies, their members and ours working together to prepare for Don's memorial. This was to inspire them, and I believe it is fitting to embody not only who Officer Don Sahota was as a police officer, but as a person as well. And this quote comes from Barbara Boxer. She said, "Law enforcement officers are never off duty. They are dedicated public servants who are sworn to protect public safety at any time and place that will, They are dedicated public servants who are sworn to protect public safety at any time and place that peace is threatened. They need all the help that they can get." I think that is very appropriate in light of conversations about law enforcement. We need our community support more than ever today. This concludes my statement, and I'm happy to answer any questions. There's obviously some information I don't know, or I'm not at liberty to share at this point.
Chief, could you say a few words about who Officer Sahota was as a person and who he was to your department?
That's a great question. Don has worked with the police department for the past 8 years. In the past few years, he has served in our training unit, and it essentially has, interacted with every member of our department. More so with the younger folks, the people that are entering into the profession, training them, getting them prepared. And in the interactions that I've had with members within that group, I can tell that he has made a tremendous impact on him, on each of them. He'll be sorely missed.
Chief, you've mentioned what a blow this is to your department, and how tough it is for, the men and women in your department. Can you share a little bit about, what you might have shared with them as far as how to cope with this and how to process what happened? I mean, I don't know if anyone off duty expects for something like this to happen at their home of all places.
Yeah, I don't know how you prepare for that. Absolutely. If there's any one given place that you should feel safe and secure, it's in your own home. We have very dedicated men and women within the department that are committed to wellness, peer support, and each one of those folks have made themselves available at any moment's notice, and we strongly encourage our folks to reach out to them. And gratefully, not only have our peer support reached out to them, they've also reached out to myself and other members out of the Office of the Chief. And it really makes you feel good that this really is a moment in time for us to come together as a family and feel supported by one another.
Chief, do you have any message for the deputy involved?
Yeah, my heart goes out to the deputy. This is a traumatic incident that in my 36 years doing this job, none of us want to end up in such a circumstance that you have to use lethal force, and to be faced with such a rapidly unfolding situation that you don't even know who's who, but you're trying to make the right decision. My heart goes out to him and his family. This should have never occurred. And as the family said, this really rests on one person's shoulders, and that's the person who's in custody.
Chief, can you clarify a statement you made earlier about since the department's inception in '83, I think you said?
1883.
Or 1883. This is the first, you call it a line of duty death, or in the line of duty, but he was off duty. Can you clarify that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, being a police officer, you may be called upon at any time to take law enforcement actions. And unfortunately, this landed on Don's front steps of his home. And he was, in that moment, acting as a police officer, trying to control somebody that was breaking the law.
So classifying as an in the line of duty or in the line of duty death?
It's on duty?
On duty.
Yes. And so our policy states that whether you're on or off duty and you're taking law enforcement actions, in this case, if you become deceased, we would classify this as a line of duty death.
Thanks.
You mentioned needing support from the community. What has the reaction from the community been like?
Nothing short of amazing. I admit that as we look to some of the national conversation about policing over the last few years, much of that has not occurred in the city of Vancouver. We have enjoyed great support from our community as well as our elected officials. But that whole national narrative still comes home to any police officer. And so to your question, what is the community's response? It's been nothing less than very supportive.
Chief, this happened very late at night. What went through your mind when you first learned of this incident?
So I wasn't sure that I heard what I was being told correctly. I knew that there was an incident that happened, but as you can imagine, as a situation like that unfolds, a lot of the information is out of order, jumbled, confusing, and people just want you to know that there's an incident. So when I initially got the call, I was aware that there was an incident involving an officer who was off duty but didn't quite register what the circumstances were. And then one of the things that goes through your mind is, did I just hear that the officer is deceased? Because I've never heard that in such a context. So it was very surprising, shocking. I made a few phone calls right away, hoping that people would have better information. And unfortunately, it was true that Don had passed away. It was tremendous. It's hard to, even today, a few days later, really process that.
How are the officers in this department holding up?
Well, as I've made contact with officers, I think, as you can imagine, most people say the same thing they would say to you when you say, "Good morning, how are you doing?" I'm doing fine. That said, while that might be the initial response, I can see it within the way that our officers are carrying themselves, that they're hurting.
Are there any plans within the department or things that you've been doing in the past few days, just kind of in memory of Officer Sahota around here, kind of outside of the more formal memorial ceremonies and that sort of thing?
So there's a number of things that are occurring. I know that so everybody wants to get involved. Everybody wants to do something. And at this point, as we are preparing for the memorial service, there's certain things that need to occur, and certain people need to participate in those. And that leaves a lot of people that want to do a lot of things, wanting to feel useful. And so I know our officers are putting together things to remember Don by, things such as T-shirts to wear, internal memorials for Don to be remembered. Along that, you may have seen the patrol car that's out front. That's been set up for the community. If people want to drop off cards or flowers, that's a location that they would be able to do that out in front of our headquarters building. Everybody wants to do something. They don't know quite what to do. And so we're giving them space to be able to work through some of that. And it probably gets back to an earlier question about how people are doing. I think it's a healthy way for people to grieve during this moment. All right. I thank you for coming out and giving me a moment to share a little bit about Don and what he means to us as a member of our family. Thank you.